Good evening, my name is Kacper Paradowski and you're watching Poland Daily News. Today is the end of the Presidential Harvest Festival in Spała under the honorary patronage of the Polish president. During the event, Andrzej Duda was accompanied by the First Lady, Agata Kornhauser-Duda.
Zapewniacie.
You provide for us as a society and for the Polish state one of the most important segments of security, food security. I start with this because it is my great thanks for what is responsible for Poland's security, that you play the extraordinary role of providing this security to us all. I deeply believe that when the payments are finally leveled out, you'll absolutely lead the European Union in every respect, in terms of yield and output, in terms of farms, in terms of their equipment and infrastructure. I have no doubt that you are phenomenal hosts who managed in the worst conditions, because you are doing well in the best conditions. I know you will be the best because you are prepared, because you grew up in such a tradition. The work you are doing is essentially sacred. I thank you with all my heart for this. God bless all Polish farmers, God bless our farms, God bless agricultural families, God bless Poland.
Niech się wszystkim darzy. Szczęść Boże.
The Law and Justice Party convention was held today in the city of Legnica with the participation of the party's chairman, Jarosław Kaczyński. During the meeting, Kaczyński touched on the subject of, among others, the VAT tax fraud, which took place during the civic platform Polish People's Party's term of office.
We want to stand by the foundation of our country and our civilization, the civilization that turned out to be the kindest in the entire world. This civilization created modern technology, medicine and life. The world is different today than it was several hundred years ago or even 100 years ago, thanks to this civilization. This civilization has to be defended because it is based on family, which is the mechanism of giving life and handing down culture. These are the things that influence the education of children and young generations. This civilization always was and always will be based on family.
The ruling Law and Justice Party still enjoys the greatest support of the voters. According to a survey conducted by Social Changes for the wpolityce.pl website, if the Polish parliamentary elections were held today, the party of Jarosław Kaczyński would definitely win.
The United Right could count on the support of 45.6% of voters. This is an increase of 2.1 percentage points compared to the previous week. 26.5% of respondents would vote for the Civic Coalition, a decrease of 2.6%. The Left, which is the bloc consisting of the Democratic Left-Wing Alliance, Spring and Together parties, came third with the support of 13.9%. The result has remained unchanged since the previous survey. The Polish coalition, which includes the Polish People's Party and the Kukiz 15 movement, would also cross the electoral threshold, with 9.8% of voters supporting them.
The Bahamas will once again have to fight the impending cataclysm. The tropical storm Humberto, which has already brought strong wind and heavy rain, is approaching the northern regions of the archipelago. This makes the rescue following the dire aftermath of Hurricane Dorian impossible.
Yesterday, UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres witnessed the destructive power of Hurricane Dorian on the shattered islands of Abaco during an aerial and walking tour of Marsh Harbor, and the mud shut it down. Guterres arrived in Nassau on Friday in a show of international support. He looked visibly shaken on Saturday after taking an aerial tour of Abaco, which bore the brunt of Dorian's impact.
I just came back from Abaco. I must say I was horrified. I've never seen such a level of systematic devastation. The Hurricane Dorian has been classified as Category 5.
The storm, packing maximum sustained winds of 85 kilometers per hour, is expected to move well offshore off the east coast of Florida and into the Atlantic Ocean through early next week, according to the U.S. National Hurricane Center.
The government is committed to getting displaced students back into school as quickly as possible. Yesterday, the Ministry of Education began the vital process of registering the 10,000 students affected by Dorian into new schools.
We're still working. I've just reviewed, looked at the direction of the system. The system is anticipated to stay mainly on our eastern flanks, The worst part of it, most of the rain bands are on the eastern flanks as opposed to our western flanks. If it stays in that path, then we would not have a great impact as one anticipated.
Humberto could complicate relief efforts in the area where thousands of structures were flattened and 70,000 people were left needing basic necessities. With 1,300 people still missing, according to the Bahamian government, relief services are focusing on search and rescue as well as providing food, water, and shelter.
That is all for tonight. Thanks for watching. Stay with us for Poland Daily Business. Good night.
Welcome to Poland Daily Weather. Let's take a look at the forecast for tonight. Clear skies in large parts of the country. Some clouds will appear over Białystok and Gdańsk. The temperature will range from 10 to 15 degrees in Gdańsk. Pressure will rise, and now over to tomorrow. Sunny weather over southern Poland, but otherwise in central and on the north we are expecting more clouds and rainfalls. A maximum 25 degrees in Kraków. Let's take a look at the forecast for the following 3 days. On Tuesday, our country will get alternating rain and sunshine. The temperature will hover around 14 degrees. Wednesday will be even a bit warmer, with temperature up to 24 degrees. Loads of sun is expected across the country. On Thursday, we will see a lot of sunlight. Temperature will range from 20 to 24 degrees. Thank you for watching and see you soon.
Poland Daily Business Edition. You all probably know that we are weeks before the general election in Poland, one of the most important in recent years. This election will prove whether the ruling party will rule for another term and whether the population in Poland agrees with the changes, the set of changes that the government of law and justice adopted during past 4 years. Convention, we had a few days ago a convention of law and justice when we learned that the minimum wage will be risen from 2020 to 3,000 Polish zlotys, that's roughly 650 euro, and from 2023 to about 1,000 euro, which is 4,000 Polish zlotys. How to make it possible? We will ask Maciej Żukowski, our guest, Tax Department Director of Polish Ministry of Finance. Sir, welcome to the show.
Welcome, hello.
And is it a headache for you when government expects the minimum wage to rise?
Please keep in mind that I'm a director of the income taxes, so if the minimal wage grows up, the taxes also, collection of taxes also grow up and increases, so that actually keeps me happy. What could be a headache for the economist is the possible inflation, and I believe that they have to address that issue during this process of climbing with the minimal wage. So this is something certainly to consider, but also let me remind you that we're still chasing the very well-developed economies. And the minimal wage in UK, France, Spain, or even Portugal are still way ahead of what we have right now. And in order to actually get this chase to be successful, so we will catch up with these economies, the increase of the minimal wage is basically unavoidable.
As a director of personal income tax, you also noted that there is less persons to collect this income tax because Polish people are leaving Poland even today in a rate that we have the doctors, we have those who are educated ones, those who are on the lower strata, they are leaving for Western Europe because obviously it's very easy and getting there twice or 3 times as much as they could earn in Poland. So maybe this is the last call to rise the wages in our country.
If I'm not mistaken, we have joined European Union 15 years ago, and this is the time where we entered the situation of economy without the borders. So it was very easy especially for young people with not strings attached, with no families or professional careers, just to leave Poland in order to seek the better economic conditions. Obviously,
famous dishwashing in London for alumni of Polish philosophy schools.
It happened. Obviously, and in order to stop that process, the government needs to take care of correcting or making better the economic condition. Obviously, part of that job is to pay a very close look to the minimal wage, and basically, from my perspective, it's a move in the right direction.
Okay, so we'll see. Can we say about the wholesale strategy of Poland for the next 10 years, what it is right now by this government?
That's a pretty broad and ambitious question. I'm afraid I would fail answering that, but from perspective of my desk, we should certainly keep on doing everything which is possible and observe the trends, worldwide trends, to make the collection of taxes, first of all, effective, and second of all, fair. So we basically cannot create the group of taxpayers which are away from our radar.
Exempt, or those who are heavily, who has to take the burden of the taxes.
It's really quite easy. If you keep them within the right treatment, they competitive against one another, not competitive because they have a special corporate income tax or VAT treatment. And if that competitiveness is upheld, then we shouldn't worry about the economy growing.
Okay. There is, because we have this election campaign right now, we have various propositions, mainly proposed by opposition. You had a chance to look at the opposition's election proposals for economy. So how do they like?
Again, I wouldn't comment on the whole program because I'm not the expert in the environmental or health issues, but if it comes to the tax and economy, on the one hand, they promise a lot of investment within the economy. On the second hand, they just saying that they will decrease the taxes, and all personal income tax and corporate income tax will be in 100% transferred to municipalities. So basically, my only comment is this is not a program, this is a wishful thinking.
Wishful thinking. We will see. October 13 election, and then we will know whether the Polish society supports the reforms and programs of law and justice or not, and what are the chances to proceed further. We'll comment on that later. I hope Mr. Maciej Żukowski, Director of the Tax Department of Ministry of Finance, will answer positively to our invitation in October.
Anytime. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And that was it for tonight's Poland Daily Business.
Welcome to Poland Daily Weather. Let's take a look at the forecast for tomorrow. Sunny weather over southern Poland, but otherwise in central and on the north we are expecting more clouds and rainfalls. A maximum 25 degrees in Kraków. And now over to our continent. The highest temperature we will see in Sofia, 33 degrees. On the Iberian Peninsula, thunderstorms and rains will appear, while in central and on the northwestern part of Europe we will see plenty of sunlight. Thank you for watching and goodbye.
Good day, everyone. My name is Maria Kądzielska, and this is Poland Daily Culture. Our guest for today is Aleksandra Gintrowska, singer, actress, and also a very beautiful woman. Ola, thank you for being with us.
Hi, and thank you. I'm really happy to be here.
But before we dig up all Ola's artistic secrets, let's listen to one of her songs.
Still many wrongs. Can you love us today? Tell your expertise. Really look me in the eyes. You don't need to run away. Do you ever hesitate? How so a man love? To me it will last. I need you now, and I know it's right. Oh, missing you. I'm losing my mind. I need you now, and I know it's right. Oh, missing you. I'm losing my mind. Pulling me away, messing with my head and signs. Do you always come with lies to one when you lie? I need you now, and I know it's right. Oh, missing you. I'm losing my mind.
I'm very happy she got Gintrowski's award.
Yes, that's true. And then the last year award was given to Franciszek Pieczka. Well,
A veteran of Polish actor stage.
exactly. Also, great memory. Yeah, so this is our goal to do the concert, the main concert in Warsaw with an award, and then to be able to travel to different cities to perform, because very often, not everyone is able to travel to Warsaw just to come to the concert. So we're trying to bring the concerts to people who cannot travel.
Absolutely, and the three of them was traveling as well, as I understand.
Exactly.
So you kind of mimic or redoing it again.
Yeah, we're just following the footsteps of the trio.
You performing always in every single concert. So what kind of songs did you pick up from Gintrowski's?
Well, like I said, all of them are really difficult when it comes to lyrics. To perform the songs right, you have to understand the lyrics, because they're the most important thing in the song, especially in those songs, because this is singing poetry. So kind of like reading poetry, but then you have to put more of a melody into it, and there is also music in the background, I would say. But yeah, so usually I just read the lyrics, and then I feel like, oh, this is something I understand, so I could try to perform the song, because when you don't understand the lyrics, you're not gonna perform it the right way. That's obvious. And the audience is going to feel it. So I have a few songs that are like really close to my heart, and especially one which is Powrót. Return, yeah.
Cicho, wrzask, szczęk i śpiew. Z ust wypluwam lepki piach. Przez bezludny step wieje zimny wiatr. Tu i ówdzie strzęp lub stopy ślad przysypany. Dokąd teraz pójdę, kiedy nie istnieją już narody, zapomniany przez anioły, porzucony w środku drogi. Nie ma w kogo wierzyć, nie ma kochać, nienawidzić kogo i nie dbają o mnie światy, martwy zmierzch nad moją drogą.
And I feel like I'm singing it to my uncle, Przemek, because it's mainly about the journey to get to the heaven. So I feel like I'm singing about him and to him that finally he is in the...
And funny thing that the title is Return, so returning to heaven, in fact.
Yeah, exactly.
As if we'd already been there.
Yeah, that's true. All of the lyrics are, you could, read it so many times and every time just find something new in them. Most of them, like a lot of them wrote Kaczmarski, but also Przemek was writing to Herbert poetry, so they're already poetry.
Absolutely, and Zbigniew Herbert poetry and his works are extremely difficult as well, even to read.
Yeah, and last year was actually Zbigniew Herbert's year, so we decided to combine it, and the last concert with an award was Gintrowski for Herbert. And we chose like most of the songs that Przemek wrote for Herbert's poetry.
And what did you think?
What I was singing last year, I don't really remember because there were so many concerts, like in Warsaw and then in different cities, so I get mixed, what I was singing in that city and what I was singing in the other one.
I recall it that you were singing The Confession of an Angel.
Yeah, that's actually in duet. It's a beautiful song, very terrifying actually, because the lyrics are strong and painful. So that was one song. I was also singing Kantyczka z lotu ptaka. I think that's also one of my favorites, because it shows the whole journey of how people were working hard, and it kind of correlates with our religion. It's beautiful. And also Modlitwa, which is a prayer. It's not a long piece, but it's also very, very touching.
So for all fans of Gintrowski music, we recommend you to maybe visit one of the Gintrowski's concerts in your nearest city. And thank you for watching Poland Daily Culture.
Few countries in the modern era have been shaped by or subject to the horrors of war as much as Poland. From its emergence after the First World War in 1918 until 20 years later, it found itself again subject to occupation, the army has played a key role in Poland's history and development. In this series of films, we look at that time, the emergence of a new army in 1918, its first major conflict in the Polish-Soviet War, its attempts during the 1930s to maintain development faced with the European-wide arms race and the struggle of the Second World War. This is a story of how the Polish Army and the Navy and the Air Force responded to that challenge. In 1918, at the end of the First World War, Poland, of course, emerged as a newly independent country after 123 years of partition and immediately had to start fighting to establish its new borders. What sort of equipment at that time was available to the Polish army?
Wojsko polskie, które powstało w 1918 roku, było tworzone z kilku.
The Polish army, which was founded in 1918, was created by merging several other units. They were mainly soldiers who served in the partitioning armies, but also Polish soldiers who, from 1914, fought in the Polish legions of Józef Piłsudski. The legions initially fought alongside Germany and Austria-Hungary, but later, after the Oath Crisis, they were dissolved, while Józef Piłsudski also prepared a Polish military organization, which, with underground methods, fought with the occupiers, and it was one of those two sources, and also the Poles who fought in the partitioning armies returned to the country and joined the Polish army. The army was created from these various factions. It must also be said that in 1917 a Polish army was established in France, which arrived in 1919 and supported the fight for the border. Indeed, the beginning of our statehood is fighting, initially against Ukraine, then against Germany, the Greater Poland Uprising, but also in January 1919, a battle with the Czechs breaks out, a very short-lived one. Later, the Polish Bolshevik War begins. The armament of the Polish army came from various sources. Let us remember that there were no arms factories in Poland, so it was one of the main sources, but later, as the state was somewhat solid, the Poles resorted to importing weapons that remained in the West from the demobilization after the First World War. The Blue Army even brought tanks that served in the Polish Bolshevik War. We also had the support of sympathetic Americans who sent their pilots, the famous Kościuszko Squadron, who fought in the Polish Bolshevik War. They deserved to fight the Soviet mounted army. They were American pilots who came to us from overseas. The weapons were comparable to weapons used by all European powers. These weapons were, above all, of course, the basic weapons of a soldier at that time. Rifles, heavy machine guns, cannons of various types, armored trains, just to name a few. We were in the midst of creating our own arms industry. It is worth saying that during the 1920 war conditions, only grenades were produced in Poland. The rest of the weapons used by Poles were imported. The creation of a large-scale arms industry only began after the borders were established in 1922.
Szeroką skalę zaczęliśmy tworzyć dopiero po ustaleniu granic w 1922 roku. To było
It was complicated because in the face of the Polish Bolshevik War, Germans and Czechs did not let in armed transport, and even if Poles managed to buy weapons in the West, they had to be delivered to Poland. It so happened that during the Polish Bolshevik War, the Hungarians helped us and sent us ammunition, which was used to fight the Red Army.
And how long did it take Poland to develop its own ammunition and weapons manufacturing?
To już po zakończeniu wojny decyzją mocarstw.
It was after the Versailles Treaty that the equipment of the Gdańsk rifle factory, the German rifle factory, was handed over to Poland. A rifle factory was opened in Poland and the first rifles were mass-produced. They were Mauser rifles, modeled after German ones, because Poles finally had the opportunity to acquire this factory and create the standard armament of the Polish army. The Mauser rifles, the same as in the German army. They were modified and subjected to improvement by the Polish defense industry, and after a few years their own rifles were developed, known as the 1929 model rifle. Later, the arms industry was expanded and arms factories were created, for example the weapons factory in Radom, which also produced these rifles, and later the famous Polish pistol designed by Polish engineers. Returning to the Warsaw factory, other weapons were also produced there. Later, in the interwar period, the production of manual machine guns and heavy machine guns began. Other industries were also developed. The aviation industry was developed, planes were built, and tanks were built.
Budowano samoloty, budowano też czołgi.
So one of the major conflicts in the early years was, of course, in 1920, the Bolshevik-Polish War. And I was wondering if you could say a few words about how the equipment available to the Polish armed forces compared to that available to the Soviet forces.
Wojna polsko-bolszewicka, największa wojna, która
The Polish Bolshevik War, the largest war that saved our independence, differed from the First World War in that it was conducted in quite large spaces with relatively small forces. Both Poles and the Russians made extensive use of their respective cavalry. The front moved very quickly. Poles managed to take Kiev, and the Russians, after a counter-offensive, approached Warsaw. Then the Poles had to take back the area occupied by the enemy. The armament was comparable. Here we can say that everything that was used in the First World War was also used in the Polish Bolshevik War. One thing that the Russians introduced were carts that were pulled by several horses on which a machine gun was mounted. Their cavalry used this equipment, and this element of armament was taken over by Poles and used by the Polish army. Polish cavalry learned from the Bolsheviks to fight with these carts and use them to transport heavy machine guns and medium machine guns. Poles also used planes, including what I mentioned about the Kościuszko squadron. They were, of course, imported planes. Radio counterintelligence was a very important tactic during the Polish Bolshevik War. We managed to organize radio counterintelligence aimed at listening to the Soviet messages and breaking the ciphers that the Russians use. During the decisive time of the Polish Bolshevik War, the Polish command, apart from having information from prisoners and their own reconnaissance, also had information from the Red Army headquarters. All orders were made by Marshal Piłsudski, the commander-in-chief of the Polish army, and knew perfectly well what assumptions and directions of the attack the Red Army would lead, and his moves during the Warsaw Battle, or later the Battle of the Niemen River. He used this information to beat the enemy, and, thanks to the fact that we knew our opponent's grouping and their intentions, we could also disrupt the opponent's communication using the intelligence radio.
Radiowywiadu też dezorganizować łączność przeciwnika.
And about that, at that time, what sort of size was the Polish army?
Polska armia liczyła w tym czasie około miliona.
The Polish army had about 1 million soldiers at that time. It was very much during the Polish Bolshevik War or the Battle of Warsaw. This is because the whole society mobilized and there were many volunteers who came to the army to defend their newly regained independence. It was a force comparable to the Red Army, engaged here on the front of the fight with Poland.
Tutaj na froncie walk z Polską.
Okay. And what proportion of that was cavalry?
Kawaleria w tym czasie tutaj zarówno po stronie polskiej, jak
The cavalry at this time, both on the Polish and Soviet side, played a large role, but it was not the basic type of weapon. The basic type of weapon were the ground troops supported by artillery. The cavalry, considering that the army was occupying large spaces and could achieve significant successes because of this army, in relation to what was used on a similar front during the First World War by the fighting countries, was much smaller.
Światowej przez państwa walczące było dużo mniej.
In these programs we've seen how Poland, from its emergence in 1918, after 123 years of partition, has, as a state, had to fight for its place in Europe. The army and the other services have constantly grappled with the need for new technology against an ever-changing European political and military background. This fight for technology is one thing, but in Poland there was also a fight, a real fight, against real enemies. And despite their material defects, of never quite being ready, of never quite having enough equipment, the Polish military spirit was undimmed. This was clearest of all in the Second World War, when Poland contributed to two particular events, the Battle at Monte Cassino and the contribution to the Battle of Britain. There's just two out of every major theatre in which the Polish army took part. This has been a fascinating story of an undimmed military spirit fighting against all the odds. A great story. I'm Nicholas Richardson, and join me again on Poland Daily History when we delve into some more exciting aspects of Poland's history.
Hello and welcome to Poland Daily Travel. Today we head west. Our destination is the Palace and Grounds at Radziowice. Situated about 40 kilometers west of Warsaw, the Palace complex is a haven for artists and a welcome spot to retire to the countryside for travelers. It's a complex of classical residences surrounded by a park, and it's been a cultural center since 1965. The Radziowice family first built the castle in the 1500s. During the palace's heyday, it was a residence to various kings of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. During the 17 and 1800s, the Kraszynski family gave the complex its present look. And currently, the castle and the complex are visited by writers, columnists, actors, filmmakers, musicians, and visual artists. So come along and let's take a look at the Radziowice Castle, Palace, and Grounds. The weather's perfect. Let's go for a walk. And watch Poland Daily Travel. We're glad to be here for you.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back. With me and Arthur, we're here in the Palace in Radziowice, outside of Warsaw. And we're looking at some of the statues, the sculptures. This guy is pretty famous, isn't he?
He's asking us, can you hear?
What's he saying?
Quo vadis.
What does that mean? Where are you going?
Yes. He wrote a book.
That was just a crazy guess.
And he got a Nobel Prize.
Right.
And there is a movie about it.
But he wasn't a noble.
And...
but he had an aristocratic nature. An aristocrat of the mind, we could say.
He lived in the same years as Frédéric Chopin, and he wanted to participate in an uprising against Russia. So we sent them to Paris as if he had to do something important over there. So he survived that uprising. And this is a land, this is Radziowice, where we have many sculptures of many important people for Polish identity, Polish history. Let's take a look at them.
In fact, I don't even remember a place quite like this, where I've seen so many of these people commemorated.
And I think that we will remember this one.
Okay. Let's go look at the next one. Okay, so we're walking around and looking at the different sculptures here.
Yes.
And I seem to recognize, I think I recognize this next one as Mr. Mickiewicz, and he's pretty important, isn't he? You have to say.
You know why his name is Adam?
No.
Because he was born on Christmas Eve.
Is that right?
24th of December, 1798, 3 years after we lost the independence.
This is the name day of Adam?
And this is the name day of Adam and Eva.
Oh, I did not know that. But now I won't forget it now. Yeah, I should have known that.
So we have these little things getting revealed in every single Poland Daily Travel program.
We reveal the secret details that people wish they knew.
And they get to know.
That people would pay good money to know.
And they know it thanks to you.
No, they do that. They know that thanks to you. Not.
And
okay, I'm producing the program, but let's not get too excited.
And I'm just a driver.
Yeah, you were the driver today. Yeah, we gotta. People know that because they saw the car if they watched the previous episode.
Who's there?
What? Who was Mickiewicz? Mickiewicz was like the poet laureate.
Poem writer. Polish people say, hey, his first sentence of his most important book starts in a way, Lithuania, my homeland.
Yeah.
But Lithuania was a state of the Commonwealth.
Right. Yeah.
Rzeczpospolita, Commonwealth. So when
the Polish-Lithuanian
So when he's saying
Union,
it's like I said, Mazovia, Mazovian state, my homeland. And this is what Mr. Kraszynski would say, because we are in Mazovia right now. Radziowice Palace and the city of Radziowice is in Mazovia. So people who were born and raised in here and would compose in here and write in here, they would say Mazovia, my homeland. He's saying Lithuania, my homeland. And let's take a look what else we'll find in here.
And his
there
name,
are so many.
Vich, that's a giveaway that he's Lithuanian, isn't it?
Adam
If you have
Mickiewicz.
Vich at the end of your name, right? Mickiewicz. Now this fella is Juliusz Słowacki, right?
He was working in our national bank.
He was a banker?
I mean, he was working in our national bank. That's why we have a sculpture.
That was his day job?
We have a sculpture of this guy at the Warsawian Bank Square.
Ah, Plac Bankowy.
Plac Bankowy.
Yeah.
We have a sculpture because there was our national bank over there. He wrote Wesele.
Oh, nearby, right around the corner it is. That's right. Yeah.
Wedding. Very important poem writer of the moments when Poland was not on the maps. So look what a genius.
He's a poet, but he also wrote a famous play called The Wedding, am I correct?
Exactly.
Is that right?
Yes, The Wedding.
And there's a theater in Warsaw, the Słowacki Theater.
The Słowacki Theater in Krakow.
It's in Krakow, not Warsaw.
The beautiful Słowacki Theater in Krakow, right next to the old town. Many people just go there to take a look at this beautiful place.
It's also opera house, right?
And it's also an opera house for 1,000 people total in Krakow, in Warsaw. Our national opera was created thanks to Mr. Moniuszko. And guess what? His sculpture is right there.
Down there, isn't it?
Let's take a look.
Let's have a look. This fellow is pretty amazing. Moniuszko, you were saying he was
creator of our national opera
in Warsaw.
Yes.
Right.
And Russians are saying, okay, you can have your national opera, but it must be smaller than ours.
The actual building has to be smaller?
Exactly. So this is how we constructed second biggest national opera in the world.
What were they thinking?
Antonio Corazzi, famous Italian architect, designed our city hall, our state hall, many buildings of Polish aristocracy in Warsaw, and our national opera. It took 7 years to construct it, and it was done. It was ready by 1833.
But the building is different from what's there now.
It was destroyed during World War II, and it took 14 years to reconstruct it.
This is a reconstruction?
In the way it was. Young Warsawians know it because of the Opera Club over there.
Yeah.
So there are original basements, I must say, very nice. But they have plays. It's a big place. There is a special Moniuszko scene. There is the main national one, and there is Moniuszko stage over there. Exactly.
And because Sena is the Polish word for stage. But Moniuszko, the Moniuszko building that's there was reconstructed to the plans of the original?
Yes, correct.
It's exactly the same as the original. It's a big building.
As close as possible.
So how much smaller is it than the Russian opera?
Oh, that's a good question.
It must just be a little bit smaller because it's a huge building. I've never been to Moscow. I don't know.
Let's go to St. Petersburg then and check it out.
Is it in St. Petersburg, the Russian National Opera?
Yes, and let's check it out. Let's go there and let's do comparison.
Should we go right now and come back?
Let's do it.
Time travel?
Poland-Russian daily travel.
Yeah. We could time travel there and come right back.
Do you think that we'll spend the rest of our times in Siberia, like we'll do Siberia, travel stuff?
I don't think I want to live in Siberia, but so I hope not. But maybe we can find a picture of the Russian opera and the Polish opera, and we can show them right here.
Let's do it.
I'll put the editors onto that.
Okay.
Okay. Poland Daily Travel. We're here at the Palace in Radżowice on a beautiful day, and we're having fun walking around. You'll love this place. Come out here and go for a walk just like us. Fantastic.